Hello and welcome to Deccan Dialogues. We have today with us Mohan Guruswamy, economist and thinker, and Sriram Kari, resident editor, Deccan Chronicle. Today's discussion is on how free is India's media? Is India's media performing the role of the fourth pillar of democracy? What are the ramifications of a weakened fourth pillar to a democracy? And what is the way out of this quagmire? Over to our experts, Mohan Guruswamy and Sriram Kari.
Sriram, Thomas Carlyle coined this phrase, the fourth pillar of democracy. It's very interesting. He didn't say it's integral to the constitution or to the state, to democracy as an institution. Not the institutional arrangements for democracy, but as an institution itself. And I kept thinking about it, as to how true he is, because what is democracy without flow of information? From people and to people. Otherwise, till mass media and the Gutenberg press came along, and moving type came along, information was relayed through town criers, that the king has ordered this. Or, feedback would go to the king from the castle gates that people are unhappy, starving. Otherwise, the feedback is very slow. But in the Bengal famine, the first Bengal famine, 1918, I think, people died because there was no feedback. The fellows in Calcutta, the Governor General and his company, didn't know people were dying. The same problem happened in China. There's no information loop. So it obviously plays a very important role in democracy. But how vitiated is that freedom to or responsibility to play this role? Is a question I want to ask you. Where is India today on the question of unbiased media?
Thank you firstly for the opportunity to be speaking to you and to be here and on a topic like this. My reflection over 25 years on this subject has been, one, a lot of water has flown under the bridge since the author of the French Revolution made that famous statement which Napoleon subsequently adopted and called it the fourth estate. Yes, democracy as an idea is very strongly built on the kind of enlightened approach towards self-governance amongst the people. The citizenry's level of awareness matters. Question is, whose responsibility is it to inform the citizen? Whose responsibility is it to question the power and to give feedback? The two loop that you spoke about, that communication is a two-way street between the people in power, not just dissemination of what the people in power want to be spoken about, but that which George Orwell said, journalism is that which somebody does not want you to write about, talk about, publish, etc. Not only has democracy evolved, transformed, metamorphosized, maybe even partially degenerated in parts across the world, or is at different states and levels of health in different countries at this point of time. But even the word information has transformed magically. We cannot really even comprehend what Thomas Carlyle must have had in his mind when he used the word information. I'm pretty sure they couldn't have conceived of the kind of communications we talk of today at the fingertips of almost everybody on this planet. So democracy has changed, evolved, stabilized, broken down at places, in parts, somewhere maybe even endangered in several parts of the world. Information has transformed. It's far more rapid. Overall, we are in a rather phantasmagoric kind of a scenario of moved from too little information, too slow, to too rapid and too much of information.
That's true, but my question is, how free is that information? Can that flow of information be relied upon? At one time, when the media was small, mass-based, etc., there was a certain reputation, cachet which went with the media. Like the New York Times always held up as a standard.
Yes.
It stood for typical American democratic values. It was not owned by any business house. Very independent because it was also financially wealthy and powerful. And that gave it its independence. But we find that in India we don't have such standalone institutions. All our institutions are now linked up with somebody or the other. If you take the TV companies, without mentioning names, I think the top 5 media houses. One business house has controlling interest in 4 of them. And how free and how reliable is that information coming from them? Is it unvarnished, unfiltered, the truth or the whole truth? We always get some part of the truth, but that is not the same as the whole truth. And same thing with newspapers. Newspaper industry is very capital intensive. A printing press costs crores of rupees. And the higher the capacity, the more it costs. Which means really it is information is modified, made malleable or colored at more than one source, from the reporter side to the editor to the printing process and then to people. So, therefore, what is the effect of that on our institution of democracy? Do the people at the top get the right information or do they feed us the wrong information? So, what is in our system? After all, it's the right of the people, the constitutional right, to know, to speak, to hear.
It's a very difficult question that you've asked me, and ownership and therefore the vulnerabilities of the commercial owner of a press, television, print or otherwise, and then their biases and their political interests and their alignment is just one aspect of the vulnerability of the media, and right down to biases, political or otherwise, of every single staff, the quality of people, the kind of context in which we operate. Increasingly, you are aware and you've seen the transformation of the degeneration of relationship between the power that be and the media, even otherwise. The number of interactions we get access to officers of various departments, access to be able to converse with them, meet with them.
Prime Minister hasn't seen anybody for 8 years.
Yes. So you don't have
except the guy with pink pants.
Yes. So press meets, for example, so there's a sense of delegitimization that's happening, and it's backed by harnessing social media, saying, my own Twitter handle has so many people, sometimes far greater than the reach of a particular newspaper, or nobody is really looking at how, what kind of objective interest would a political leader's handle have to give you information that is inconvenient to them. This point is being lost. But on the other hand, there are positive sides that wherever, to the extent the media has lost its freedom, and there's no denying that we are operating under a lot of pressure, a lot of limitations, even compared to the kind of relatively higher freedom we enjoyed in our own lifetimes and careers. I mean, speak to so many journalists who can tell you decade by decade by decade how things have gotten worse when it comes to the hostility, when it comes to the basically delegitimization, basically to say you shouldn't exist or you don't matter and we'll make sure you don't matter. And then the organized trolling. You're right that media has lost its credibility partly because of its own doing. I would be very wrong here to say that no single journalist ever, no single editor ever, no single owner of a media house ever has misused the power they had at one point of time to give a prejudiced view or give a bias, etc. But that was less harmful to democracy overall. We are less free today as a media, and the proportional damage to democracy is very visible.
Now we are seeing another challenge. I used to think that when social media began, when the internet began, that there will be an explosion of truth, information, people will be able to filter and sift through. But now we find there's a huge overload and there's huge quantities of fake news, lies, distortions, abuse which flow around. And a lot of it cane currency because people themselves are credulous. You know, number of people who even till today believe that Jawaharlal Nehru was a Muslim. What can you say about that? And you get that again and again. The same fellows will keep distributing it. That Feroz Gandhi was a Muslim. The question is, Muslim, so what? But that's not the issue. It's still a lie. But it goes on. Lies about people. You saw that famous Swiss bank account report, which was released by the late Ramjet Malani, with luminaries like Guru Murthy, all listing out ostensibly details, Mr. Doval of bank accounts. And they said Rajiv Gandhi got 1,80,000 crores. Sonia Gandhi, 2 lakh crores. The numbers were astounding. And they came to a press conference and released it. So I said, what is the standard of our elite that they can come out with such nonsense? Look at the figures, astounding figures. I said, these guys have a check. But we find that it got traction. And they were more interested in traction than in the truth. We find that in Parliament. Why does Parliament get disturbed so often? Guys are not interested in debate. They're interested in you, sitting there in the galleries, watching, and what you will tell the people. That today our MP protested against cow slaughter, and 2 cows were killed in his constituency, so he sat on dharna. And that is the message he wants to send home. And you report it. So Parliament has become a theatre. Everything has become a theatre. So what happens to a responsible media?
Well, a couple of things. One, I believe we are all suffering from intellectual laziness and dishonesty at an individual level. The rigor that is expected of you before you allow something to seep into. Leave politics aside for a second. I'm sure you've heard of people getting calls saying they've got a lottery worth a crore, or somebody who's 11th class pass gets a job as a deputy CEO of a company if only he deposits 50,000 or...
And people actually deposit.
And people actually deposit, and then some part of it actually then goes on to be reported to cyber police, and then so these are fractions. So the number of people who would love to believe an unpopular truth is very high. Look, democracy is about people, and there's no point condemning the people. This is a reality that giving air, social media has become more convenient to air your biases, to organize along the lines of the lowest common denominator of fallacy of ideas you have, to indulge in common side collection, to lynch a fictitious or real assumed enemy, and to constantly keep up that hate quotient. And you're right, the operating principle of this century's democracy seems to have come not from Thomas Carlyle but Goebbels.
Yes.
He believed you give a complete lie and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, some part of it will stick. So mudslinging is not just a favorite hobby, but a mega industry today. And the media that would like to be, to the best of its ability, truthful, objective, even politically neutral, except to the broadest ideas of Indian democracy as enshrined in the constitution, there's nothing wholly left anymore. What is the yardstick? The two sides are saying we have two different yardsticks. That is why it is inconceivable, and we are seeing Albert Einstein's saying come true in front of our eyes, that it's possible for Gandhi and Godse to be pitched as some kind of intellectual rivals, as if they founded two different schools of thought, and that's all there is to it. Which is, what kind of a shock you would have, and yet we are not shocked. We have become shock-proof sort of.
Do you know the Le Monde experiment, where just to avoid this, avoid proprietors, avoid owners, they said that journalists must own the newspaper. So it was created as a cooperative. Do you see that kind of institutional arrangement could be possible in India? Or is it possible to have some kind of a BBC kind of a thing, which largely functions for British interests, but is also largely free? It can be critical of the politicians, critical of the government, and so you can combine these two interests. New York Times is unique in its own way.
Yeah.
American institution.
Family, trust, and
Family has a trust, and they are generally impermeable to pressure. But Le Monde is a good classic example. This experiment never caught on in India, never stayed.
I would like to believe that I'm seeing a lot of entrepreneurship of sorts by journalists who've had a great career, who've had their fame, visibility, following, and you see them having moved into online. So one good side to the digital revolution is that it's absolutely far more easier, and you alluded to it when you spoke about the cost of setting a legitimate satellite television or to create a newspaper or that kind of distribution, that kind of, it's a unit, right? It's like a factory. It has kind of investments that beyond the reach of everybody. But on digital media, and to that extent, social media is wonderfully democratic. Yes, it is chaotic. It's full of lack of rigor, of research. Anybody can come up with an opinion, without facts, without not only access to facts, but without care to facts. I would just like to abuse you because I have a Twitter handle, or I'm on Facebook. So I'll say, oh, Mr. Mohan Guruswamy, you said this. I disagree with you. But why am I disagreeing with you? I don't have to explain. I just think you are so and so. I don't like you. I don't like your face. I just could hate you. And then I could start calling you names.
To me often.
I've been on several co-tagged debates on Facebook with you. So it's democracy at work in a sense. It's a good thing that people are expressing themselves and they feel satiated. In a way, it doesn't create that pent-up anger, which is also partially what explains higher incumbency returns of governments. People are not as angry with governments despite their dismal failing because they're finding expression. There's something people should really analyze further. It, in a way, helps a bad government because people are coming out with their anger every day. They're fine with the government. In a way, it's good.
Do you think the government is responsive to these criticisms?
No, not at all.
On Facebook or Twitter? Or...
Oh, well, they behave like corporates. You know, no matter what complaint you give to a airline or a hotel, the first thing they'll say is, we are so sorry for the inconvenience, if any, cost to you. I mean, that kind of a synthetic desire to close the digital by a bot. And now a bot will handle all citizens. So yes, governments are pretending on social media that they care, but most of the issues, no, not genuinely. And Mohan, the truth is, I don't think the position of the people in power today is that of the Viceroy of India or the Governor of Bengal during the Bengal famine. It's not lack of information. They know. You have cameras in the city of Hyderabad. Maximum number of cameras.
40,000, I'm told.
Yes, 40,000 cameras. So you can virtually see what is happening at any point of time in any part of the city. Would you need that many cameras to figure out the roads are bad, traffic jams are terrible, rains?
But the cameras are with the police. They're not seeing roads. They're not telling the government that roads are bad. They're just saying if somebody has stolen a banana from a cart. You know. And
the best part is just when the most powerful man commits an accident, that camera goes kaput for that. There's technical maintenance, they say, you know. So, no, but on a more serious note, the thing is, Mohan, I also believe technology and democracy, their fusion, their coming together is in its kind of past its infancy, it's in its childhood age. You have to give it 21 odd years to mature. I don't think we will stay at this level of absolute abject immaturity as a people forever. We can't. We'll get bored of it. Are you already seeing people get...
How does a man like Trump get elected then? A total...
collateral damage.
Total fraud. You know, lied about his book.
I think it's a power of contrast. What happens in democracy is also when people look for change. They look for change. And this explains very well the difference not only between Obama and Trump, but also Dr. Manmohan Singh and Narendra Modi. People saw Obama and saw certain qualities in him, and they said, we want contrasting values.
Yeah.
So here is somebody who's fit, here is somebody who's not fit, here is somebody who's one of the youngest editors of Harvard Law Review, and here is somebody who says Rocket Man on Twitter and who conducts diplomacy by trolling. So they wanted a contrast, and they found from the sophisticated, absolutely brilliantly articulate Obama to what was Trump.
Or is it that people never learn? People are always, majority are like that, uninformed, shallow, and democracy therefore is not suitable for everybody. If it's,
You sound like Jonathan Swift at the end of Gulliver's Travel. Absolutely. No, I wouldn't say we should have ever contempt for our fellow beings at that scale.
That's a noble sentiment. I respect that.
Yes.
But I think there is legally, constitutionally, we are all equal.
Yes.
But as individuals, people are not equal. We have different IQs. We have
Absolutely.
different scales of knowledge.
But isn't that the failing of the system too, that and that's where the elite in particular have to not only, before you get judgmental, we have to introspect. Have we done enough in our lifetimes with our privilege, with our power to have made a difference, to have influenced, to have given? We found our plenty in denying a lot of people a lot of things. Suddenly we find the lack of their education is determination to our interests.
That's why institutional filters, like a responsible newspaper with responsible staff, with a mindset, a certain kind of intellectual orientation, were filters to all kinds of base opinions. That seems to be going in.
That is today going to be destroyed as an argument on social media as absolute naked advocacy of elitism. We will be butchered out there in social media for even saying that we are thinking like that. That train has left.
But isn't elitism, like, political parties, are supposed to be structured into organizations, local level, then regional levels, and step by step you went up. Now the complete destruction of party we have seen is from the top to the mass, not even to the party organization. Party organization is a temporarily raised army, which is given money to go and function. And like Amit Shah says, I want every booth, 5 booth managers. So it's an organizational task, not something coming out of commitment. And these people are paid. I know, I've been around for long enough to know how much they paid, what they paid, and how the system of favors works in government.
Yes, the influence of money, big money, organized big money on politics is Leviathan, is phenomenally, I think it's almost become a pandemic. But to go back to the question of would cooperative of journalists owning newspapers, etc. work, I think it will be very chaotic. I think it's a Fabian dream, or it's kind of lotus eating. I don't think it'll work. It's been attempted in very desperate contexts in India once or twice, and it's given disastrous results, disappointing those who advocated it and participated in it. There is a television channel right now in Andhra and Telangana which was started as a cooperative, where some 5 lakh people bought in shares, and it didn't quite give good results. So issue is not of private ownership. What I'm worried about is, and many great journalists before me whose stature I won't kind of say I can match, have commented that the homogeneity of templatized editorial policy, the fact that there isn't enough diversity in our newsrooms, the fact that there isn't enough diversity in our focal points, our concerns, our ability to care for different parts of the population equally is far more disastrous. I'm very proud of the fact that media has very high gender diversity. I actually proud that more than half the employees across media in India are women. But I can't say the same thing about a Dalit or a Girijan or a tribal. They aren't enough. For example, I have a reporter.
As Sharad Yadav would have said, Balkati Mahila.
Yes, yes. But the truth is that they were there, and that did bring a wonderful change. So newsroom diversification is as crucial.
Another thing is, I see evidence of lack of professionalism among journalists.
That is so true.
Yeah, that they're not trained. Many of them will ask you basic questions on, say, economic policy, or they ask you for research. When did that happen? When did this happen? And does only good English writing skills or language writing skills is required? What happened to journalism schools, professionalization? There seems to be no qualification. On the other hand, if you had qualified people, also it's not a qualification because they're not professionals in fields, for instance. So how does it worry you as an editor?
It is the biggest worry, I would say. If anything causes me concern, it is the lack of kind of quality you would like, or the kind of combination of values, passion, integrity and intelligence. Not enough people are seeing this as a profession. When you want to become a doctor, you say, I want to learn everything about what it takes to be a good doctor, or you want to be a lawyer, or you want to be a cricket player. But journalism doesn't seem to get that sense in you anymore. It is my biggest micro day-to-day worry. Lack of good people. There's some wonderful people I'm lucky to be associated with, but how long will I have such people? Will the new crop care? My answer is I'm not very happy. I'm not very optimistic. I'm almost concerned. I feel I'm on that ship, with fellow dinosaurs about to sing and...
As an editor?
Yes.
You're probably a rare editor. These days, many newspapers don't even have editors.
Yeah, they don't. And,
the biggest newspaper in the country doesn't have an editor.
Yes, and they do different. There's one newspaper which has everybody's called an editor. And that way, the two ways you destroy something, one by having none and one by having too many.
One editor told me that his owner said, I don't need an editor, I need a product manager.
Yes. So you can be a product manager, brand manager. And there are many newspapers, sadly, where reporters have revenue targets per month, etc. I'm very lucky that way to be working in Deccan Chronicle with the kind of support I have, but I'm very concerned, Mohan, about the future of this industry. And I'm even more concerned when you remind me that our job is not to run a product, but to be actually responsible for democracy as a fourth pillar. Then surely democracy is a three-legged cart to begin with straight away.
I've seen days when Girilal Jain was a friend of mine. Shamlal, I didn't know, but I knew of him. I knew him socially. But Girilal Jain was a friend. So I used to meet him probably once or twice a week at the IIC, at the lounge, having tea. So I'd ask him, Giri, what's the plan for the day? So Giri would look at you seriously and say, Mohan, I haven't made my formulation as yet for the country.
Well, I also heard this story about somebody you know personally. I'll not name that person here, but he was one of the biggest newspaper media barons this country has ever seen and known, and extraordinary influence. And he was asked, are you pro-establishment or are you anti-establishment? And he said, I am the establishment. So, but the thing is, I would like to be optimistic. I like to be hopeful. I would like to say that yes, there are too many challenges. There are challenges of technology, of politics, of finance, of models, but and the fact we spoke about that, do people care enough about truth? But I believe, Mohan, somewhere this, like in huge darkness, that little spark of light, a little spark of truth will rekindle, will resonate and reinvigorate all of us. And all you need is that one little story, and it comes every day in my newspaper. I love to, half asleep, cut it and tweet it and say, here, this is my little contribution on behalf of my colleagues, my company, my industry, my domain, my pillar. And I believe...
How much of truth is there in the news report?
I don't know.
Because I have done a research on one particular case. There was a murder near on the road to Sanat Nagar from Amirpet. It was done in broad daylight. Each of our 4 newspapers reported it differently. One reported they stopped a bus, pulled the guy out and killed him. Another reported that the guy jumped out of the bus, was running, and they chased him and killed him. On which side of the road? The killing, all different. So how does the same event get 4 different
Well, I'm very happy that all of them agreed that there was a murder.
That's what
And
we are agreed.
that's the common minimum truth that we are able to offer, and I think I will live with it. See, democracy isn't perfect. It's beautiful because it's imperfect. Media isn't perfect. Journalists are not perfect. The newspaper you put out there may not be perfect truth in the sense of a scientific theory presented at the Royal Society of Science that goes on to win a Nobel Prize, but it keeps you better informed, and I think it will do as long as people are able to somehow bring out little bit of truth every little day. I'm pretty hopeful things will be fine.
So some truth, part of the truth.
Part of the truth. It's an imperfect truth. It's not even the complete
We have to live
truth.
with that. And therefore we have to decide ourselves as to
Yes.
what is the truth.
I think everybody should be more discerning. Eternal vigilance. That's the final word.
Is the price of liberty.
Absolutely.
Good. Nice conversation.
Thank you so much, Mohan. Pleasure. Thank you.